De moda, yo prefiero utilizarlo para hablar en las rolas, aunque luego mi discurso sea bien limitado y mis rimas sean baratas con vocablo zapatito blanco, zapatito azul, dime cuántas rimas tienes tú, cuántos pandilleros has matado para que te persiga el Estado, que todos los hechos tienen un efecto, ofendes a un machín que es poderoso y al infierno. Apaga tu micrófono y vete a tu casa, ponte a ver los Simpsons hasta la madrugada, óyete unos discos de Café Tacuba, pídete una pizza para dormir con agrura. El micrófono se ha vuelto un arma de moda. El micrófono se ha vuelto un arma de moda. El micrófono se ha vuelto un arma de moda. El micrófono se ha vuelto un arma de moda. Con 8 temporadas, ponte tus tenis y saca a bailar a dos señoritas que tengan bigotito pa' que una la puedas besar. Si en la calle te encuentras a los que insultaste, di que fue otro y que le pegaste. Solo, Big Metra, Tupac, Claudio Yarto, Selena, da igual. Que todos los hechos tienen un efecto, ofendes a un machín que es poderoso y al infierno. Así que apaga tu micrófono y vete a tu casa, ponte a ver los Simpsons hasta la madrugada, óyete unos discos de Café Tacuba, pídete una pizza para dormir con agrura. El micrófono se ha vuelto un arma de moda. El micrófono se ha vuelto un arma de moda. El micrófono se ha vuelto un arma de moda. El micrófono se ha vuelto un arma de moda.
November 10th, excuse me, at 9:01. The first order of business is the introductions of the commissioners who are present. I will begin with to my right.
Commissioner Carrie Ann Canch.
I am Vivian Salaga, Chair of the Commission, a Preservation Architect.
Mary Shoecraft, Historic Preservationist.
Tom Pluckon, Professor of Anthropology, USF.
Welcome, everyone. I know our last time we met in this room was in June of this year, and I'm glad we're back and glad to see everyone. The minutes from that June meeting are in your packets and were previously sent to each of the commissioners electronically. Is there anyone who has a comment or a correction to make to those minutes? Seeing none, may I have a motion to accept the meetings as submitted, the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
A second, please.
I second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are accepted as submitted. The next item on our agenda are announcements from Dennis Fernandez, the HPC Administrator.
Good morning, Commissioners.
It's very quiet.
Okay, how about that? All right. Good morning, Commissioners, and welcome to the November 10th HPC hearing. We do have a few items, so I'll be brief. I did want to let you know, remind you that we are going to be holding our December meeting on December 1st. That was a date that we polled the commissioners and did seem to be consistent with your schedules. We have a time-sensitive item that we're dealing with, and that's why we had to move the meeting up to that date. Other than that, I believe we are ready to move on with the agenda to the conflicts of interest and ex parte communication.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Will any of the Commissioners please state on the record whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda? Seeing none. Additionally, will the Commissioners state whether or not they've had any ex parte communication regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda? Seeing none for the record. Thank you, Madam Commissioner. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the swearing. Any individuals in the audience are going to be presenting or providing testimony, including staff. Please stand and raise your right hand. Thank you. And if it's a pleasure of the board, we're ready to move on to our first case.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. This morning we have an agenda item regarding a property in the Hyde Park Historic District. This is a single-family residence located at 1711 West Hills Avenue. The request before you today, is to change the status of the structure from contributing to non-contributing. This is kind of a different sort of request than we usually bring to you. Typically, we're bringing you buildings that were non-contributing previously and have been rehabilitated or otherwise met the requirements for becoming a contributing building in a historic district. We have a presentation for you this morning. Is that available? Thank you. So 1711 West Hills Avenue is in the Hyde Park Historic District. Am I able to get the next slide? Thank you. You see it here outlined in red on the aerial map. It's on the northwest side of Hills Avenue. It's a kind of in the southern part of the Hyde Park Historic District. Thank you. And it's in between Rome Avenue and Gunby Avenue, very close to Bayshore Boulevard, just a couple blocks away. So this is the Sanborn maps showing this house. You can see it kind of outlined in blue in the middle of the Sanborns here. You see it doesn't change much over the years from 1922 when it first appears on the Sanborn maps. In 1931, which you just saw in 1951, you can see a small little structure to the front of the property there, which is a playhouse. We'll see that in a little bit. And then, of course, by 1976, that's been removed. But you can notice how the house sets back a little bit from the other structures along the street. That's a little atypical of the pattern we often see on blocks in historic districts where frequently, you know, every house is lined up in a nice little row. This one, for some reason, was set back pretty much in the middle of the lot. This is the aerial of the map, and we've overlaid it here, the aerial of the lot, and we've overlaid it here with the 1931 footprints of the maps on the Sanborn, footprints of the houses in the Sanborn maps, excuse me. You can see there that the two houses on either side of the house in the middle, of course, being the subject lot, 1711 West Hills Avenue. The house to the northeast, which is 1709 West Hills Avenue, and the one to the southwest there being 1713 Hills, pretty much retain the same footprint today that they had historically. I'm using the 2014 aerial here just because it had the least amount of tree coverage, and you could see the extent of the roof line as it still is today pretty clearly. But you can see that the house really does not look like it's taking up the same amount of the lot there. The footprint's a little larger today than it was then. So this is the front view of the house. What we're looking at here is not the original front porch. It was an addition built in 1989. You can see a little bit of the second story above. And then here is the front and the sides of the house. So the picture on the top is showing you the north. Sorry, I have to do my directions here. Showing you the sort of the northern side, and then the more southern side, southwest side on the bottom picture there. So you can see the porch, the front porch, that's an addition to the structure in both shots. In the picture on the top, you can see a porte cochere that was not original to the structure. And on the picture on the bottom, you can see this entire wing that juts out beyond the first story, the main body of the house, that was not original. And then this is the rear of the house as it is today. We don't have original photos of this house, no original elevations, obviously. So what you're looking at here, everything sort of in this photo, everything to the left of about where the door is may have been on the structure at that point in time, but we're really not certain. Everything to the right of the door there is an addition, the first and second story. So again, looking at the southwest side, this is a picture that appeared in the, in the local newspaper, showing one of those girls is the daughter of the second family to live in this house, Enid Sandler. The Sandlers lived at this property for quite some time, but let's see. This picture dates back to 1928. So that's a playhouse, which if you look at some of the features that it has, like the front gable vent there, you can see that it has some features in common with the primary house. Not knowing exactly what the front porch looked like, we can't say for sure if this really would be sort of a miniature version of the primary house. But it's it's right there next to the front porch, and you can make out the original foundation of the house adjacent to it, and the open area where the front porch was. It appears that this porch had no railing at that time. And then there's a sort of a horizontal white beam going across the front porch. And I've studied this picture a lot, and I don't think that's part of the house structure. I think that might be some sort of swing or element on the front porch. Excuse me. This is 1709 West Hills Avenue. The picture in the house taking up the main portion of the photo here, you can see a little bit of 1711 West Hills Avenue in the background. They're off to the left. So if you're able to inspect that photo closely, you can see where the screened-in front porch is and where it begins in reference to the windows on that side of the house. There are 2 windows there flanking the chimney on that side. So that gives us a good point of reference for where the porch was at that time. So looking back at the Sanborns here, this is the 1931 again. When you look at the Sanborn maps, what they tell you is where the first floor was and where the second floor was. It's indicated by the 1 and the 2. The D tells you it's a dwelling. The dashed lines indicate that it was an open area, so you can see the open front porch there on the bottom and the first floor area. And then the second floor is sort of a T shape, which is a little bit different than what we see on a lot of historic houses or historic bungalows, but it has what looks like probably an open sleeping porch up top there, indicated by the open, the break in the lines on the second story. You can see the playhouse indicated there with its main structure and its little front porch, and then the garage or the auto house with the A at the back of the lot, the 1-story house. The yellow indicates that it was a wood frame structure, and then that black circle on there, I believe, indicates that it's the roofing material, probably some form of non-combustible asphalt shingle or something like that. So when the Hyde Park Historic District was surveyed, the survey work sort of got kicked off in 1983, I believe, and then in 1984, the Hyde Park Historic District nomination form was sent to the state and then on to the National Park Service for the consideration of listing the Hyde Park Historic District in the National Register of Historic Places. This is the survey map, which was color-coded very nicely at that time, so a lot of little houses to color. We're only looking at the southern part of the historic district, and that the middle picture there. And the blue indicates that it was a non-contributing structure to the district. At that time, you can see, as I've tried to illustrate in the line drawing on the right side, that the original house, you can see the basic original first floor and second floor shapes there, the footprints of those. The front porch had been enclosed, so I'm indicating that with a solid line now and updated the colors for the non-original changes to the structure. On its southwest side, there was a sort of a stairway entrance. I think it also had a laundry in it. It's located there on the left, and the purpose of that stairway was you could enter it independently from the front of the house, take the stairs up to the apartment that was separated upstairs. So this had been turned into a multifamily structure. And on the northeast side of the house, there's indicated by the dashed line a screened-in porch. And then on the second floor, there was a small addition on that second floor upstairs where the sort of reddish-orange area is shown with the number 2 on it, which was an additional bathroom for the apartment upstairs. So on a few of the early maps for some of the historic districts like Hyde Park, sometimes you'll see that there were multiple categories of the structures. Usually when we look at our maps now, we only see contributing or non-contributing structures in a historic district. When these surveys were done, there was an additional category called contributing altered structure. So you'll note that this particular house did not even make it into the contributing altered structure. It was just considered non-contributing. And then the note at the bottom of the screen there is from the original nomination report, noting the alterations that it had the front porch enclosed and had been converted to multifamily dwelling. And the house at 1711 West Hills has the same status, non-contributing, in 1988. This is the 1988 map when the local Hyde Park Historic District was presented for consideration and adopted by the city of Tampa as a local historic district. So in 1989, the owner of the house came forward with an application to make some alterations and additions to the structure. This is showing the floor plans that we were able to find. They had been scanned from the microfilm, so they're not, you're not able to get the highest quality of these images. We don't have the original drawings, but you can see here I've overlaid the plans that were submitted in 1989 and approved with the footprint of the house as it was in that time, the first story being on the first floor being on the left side and the second floor being on the right. So you can see the outline of the original form of the house and the later alterations and additions. If you look at if you can see on the bottom of the first floor, you'll note that it's shown there with doors opening off the front porch. So the front porch had been enclosed at that time and was shown as such in these drawings. So the proposed plans for this project included the areas as additions that are shown in black here. So on the front, you can see that the original front porch, which had been enclosed, now has showing a new front porch on the front of it, facing Hills Avenue. On the southwest side, we see an addition on both the first and second story, and then on the northeast side, we can see the addition of a porte cochere that was put in place after the screened-in porch was demolished. And then looking at the elevations, the bottom left elevation is the front of the house. This is how it would have appeared before. We can see the first story and the second story additions to the structure. It's just the basic form, not the details of the elevations. Of course, I did not have access to those. But you can see the rear was pretty much a smaller area there. The upper right picture is that southwest side, and you can see where the first story addition was. And then I noted on the front to the right in that image is where the screened-in porch, where the closed-in front porch would have been. And then on the bottom right, again, where the closed-in front porch would have been, and the second story bathroom addition. But when we get to the proposed and completed plans, in the gray areas, it's showing where the additions were that were added in 1989. So on the first, on the bottom left, on the front elevation, you see the new porch, the new porte cochere, and you can see the addition on the second story that's behind the addition from the first story that was added earlier. And then also the second story addition up there. So you don't see much of the original structure from the front. The back, the top left is the rear elevation. You can see the change in mass there on the rear elevation with the addition, the two-story addition on the southwest side and the porte cochere. And then on the top right, the left elevation or the southwest elevation with the two-story addition and the prior one-story addition. And there's a little sort of balcony on top of the older stairwell addition there. The area where the front porch had been closed in, and then the new front porch to the right. And then the same on the bottom right elevation, the northeast side with the new porch, the closed-in porch, the second-story bathroom addition, and the new porte cochere there. And I also one of the windows, some of the windows that were added, and just noted that when there's a octagon window, not just in that one location is shown on these elevations, but there are, I think, 2 on that side on the second story, and at least 1 more on the southwest elevation. There's also a note on these plans. It's very hard to probably make out on your screens, but one of the conditions of the approval, and this was approved by the ARC in 1989, was that 6/1 windows be used, which is, we don't see that in the historic pictures. It's not indicated. There are screens over the windows, and they're pretty well shaded in. It's difficult to say what was actually there. 6/1, and we know is not a common window type on many historic bungalows from that era. So this is that southwest side with the additions. In the front here is the stairway and laundry room addition that was added, the little balcony above it, and the 2-story addition that was added in 1989. And then on this northeast side, the porte cochere, of course, was an addition, and above that, sort of behind the chimney, you can see 2 little gables on that side, and the one that's toward the front of the property there is where the bathroom addition was. So in 1990, the ARC at that time did a survey or another survey of the Hyde Park Historic District, and decided that there were some structures in it that had been altered, improved, I guess rehabilitated, in their opinion, to the point where they were worthy of being changed from non-contributing to contributing structures. There's a list of, let's see, approximately, excuse me, it's on page 26 of your staff report. There's a list of 38 buildings that were called out as new contributing structures for the Hyde Park Historic District at that time, from the map updates that was done. And 1711 Hills is number 19 on that list. So those structures were all reclassified by the Tampa Architectural Review Commission in 1990 as contributing. And this on the screen here is the 1992 updated map. I was not able to find a copy of the 1990 updated map. So that map is showing 1711 Hills as contributing. And then this is our most recently updated map of that portion of the Hyde Park Historic District from 2017. And we still have it showing as a contributing structure to the historic district. So the owners of the property have requested this change in the status from contributing to non-contributing for the structure at 1711 West Hills Avenue. Staff's findings were that the previous work is inconsistent with the Hyde Park Design Guidelines and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitations The Hyde Park design guidelines state that earlier porch enclosures should be reversed to their original open state, and that additional square footage, if needed, should be added to the rear of the property. The addition of the porte cochere on the northeast side is also inconsistent with the design guidelines, as it represents, it's a detail that was not present on the original structure and therefore should not have been added. The addition of the new front porch also altered the roof form, and the original porch details were either removed or completely obscured through the new construction. There's very limited evidence, if any, to show whether or not the new porch details were consistent with the original details. There are differing siding profiles on the house, which is definitely not something that we would recommend as an appropriate treatment for any addition on a historic house in one of our historic districts currently. The vinyl windows and door selections also would not be appropriate selections for a contributing structure in the Hyde Park Historic Districts. In addition, the additions on the historic structure, of course, should be subordinate and not conceal the original features. And as I was just reviewing, there were uncharacteristic and inappropriate materials and details that also obscured the building's historic appearance. So therefore, staff finds that the alterations, particularly to the primary elevations, have altered the building's historic integrity to the point that the original facade is no longer apparent. That concludes my presentation regarding the structure. The applicants and their agent are here this morning. If you have anything additional to add, I'd ask you to come forward at this time. Thank you. I'm sorry? Oh, sorry.
Good morning. My name is Greg Jones with Jones Architecture. This morning I am the agent representing the owners at 1711 West Hills Avenue. I wanted to first thank Elaine and the HPC staff for such a thorough report, and also as well as their assistance in guiding us through this process. Other presentation? Thank you. So again, just for orientation, here's a map showing the property, which is just west of Rome Avenue. And a current view of the front of the house. It sits on the north side of the street facing south. It's an interior lot. And because the staff report was so thorough, I'm going to try not to be redundant, but I did want to just point out a couple of key items that I thought were of significant importance. As Elaine said, in 1983 and 84, the Historic Resources Survey of Hyde Park was conducted. All the properties that were considered potentially eligible as contributing were identified. 1711 West Hills Avenue was not on the list. In 1985, the Hyde Park Historic District was listed on the National Register. 1711 West Hills Avenue is shown on the survey as non-contributing. The designation of non-contributing was based in part on the enclosure of the front porch and the other alterations that Elaine mentioned that were deemed irreversible. Please note those alterations are still present today. In June of '88, the city designated Hyde Park as a local historic district. 1711 West Hills Avenue is shown as non-contributing on the map accompanying the designation. In December of '88, the National Register map was updated, and again, 1711 West Hills Avenue is shown as non-contributing. In 1989, the addition that Elaine went through was completed on a home, and it further diminished the architectural integrity of the home. A screen enclosure was removed, wood windows were replaced with aluminum and vinyl windows, aluminum soffits and fascias were installed, vinyl siding was installed, and a new front porch was added in front of the area where the original front porch had previously been enclosed. By reviewing the building plans, the Sanborn maps, and the historic photos, it appears the original porch was enclosed sometime between 1976 and 1985. The staff report notes several changes which were not consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. The house at 1711 West Hills Avenue presently features a footprint significantly altered from the original with additions on 3 sides. All of these additions are inconsistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Most significantly, the original front porch was enclosed and a new porch constructed onto the front of the building in '89. Additionally, a non-original screen side porch was removed and replaced with a porte-cochere during that same renovation. These alterations are not consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines for porches and porte-cocheres. The addition of the new front porch altered the roof form. The original porch details were removed or obscured through the new construction. This is more of a close-up of some of the same things that Elaine showed. The large window to the foreground there on the side, just to the left of the electrical meter, is where the original front porch was located that was enclosed. You can see how the new, the roof line, when they kind of patched everything together, that gable that occurs just in front of the chimney there was part of the original roof form that just kind of got swallowed by the new roof. Currently, there are multiple types of siding on the home, as well as the vinyl and aluminum windows, neither of which are historically appropriate. In May of 1990, attachments to the TARC meeting minutes include 1711 West Hills Avenue as a newly contributing structure. Unfortunately, we don't have any additional information as to why this was changed. So as we look at the references that help guide the determination of whether a structure is contributing or non-contributing, we find the following. First, the definition by the National Register for non-contributing structures reads, any structure erected before 1933 which has lost the greater part of its architectural integrity and cannot be returned to a condition approximating its original appearance and use of inappropriate materials shall be considered non-contributing. The National Register's designation of non-contributing was based on the enclosure of the original front porch and other alterations that were deemed irreversible. Second, we have the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, and as you saw in the staff report, it notes that these additions and renovations to the building have no historical basis and are inconsistent with these standards. And then the last reference that we have is the City of Tampa zoning code for the process in changing a property from contributing to non-contributing. That reads that evidence that the building, structure, or object has retained its historical and architectural integrity and is appropriate to the period of significance of the historic district or the historic conservation overlay district. So we strongly believe that the building has not retained its historical or architectural integrity and does not meet the zoning requirements for contributing. This morning we're requesting that this property be changed back to non-contributing, and we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, is there anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this project and this request?
There's another microphone on the other side if you want to use that one.
Good morning. My name is Kyle Campbell. I'm property owner. My wife was here. My wife and I purchased the house in June. I apologize if I'm not totally here right now. I just had a daughter here recently, and my mother-in-law was carrying her and tripped, and she's on her way to the hospital, so I'm going to probably go there in a second. So apologize if I'm short. But again, we came in, want to be in this area. We have family on the street. It's been a dream to come into Hyde Park and been a dream to come into this area. I think we heard a lot about the house. Again, we're not trying to flip this thing. We're not developers. We're not trying to do this. We want to be here. We want to have more kids. We want to live in this area for a very long time and grow up here. So I just want to let our intentions be known. And again, apologize if I'm not totally mentally here right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to this issue? Seeing none, then we will close the public hearing and open it for questions or comments from any of the commission members?
Just a moment, as we get into the discussion, I wanted just to review a little bit of your authority to review the current request. The authority to review initial designations of contributing status and change in the status when requested to do so by an applicant is delineated in 27-261 of the code that pertains to the HPC powers and duties. This is a review authority that relies on your determination. It is not an advisory power, much like would be a recommendation to City Council for a designation of sorts. So this is a decision that the board makes with the statuses of the structures that are located within the boundaries of a local historic district. So if you have any questions for staff, we will be available and try to assist you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any comments or questions to either the petitioner or the staff? None. Seeing none.
I'm sorry, I have just a few.
Go right ahead.
These are for the city attorney and for staff, which is, does economic hardship come in at all? Because there is no criterion, they don't have to present information that, along with all this other information, that in order to return it to a condition approximating its original appearance would be an economic hardship.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. That is not.
We can't hear you.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. That is not, economic hardship is not one of the elements or criteria that you need to consider for this application, for this approval or denial.
Okay.
If I could just expand on that. So this being a designated structure within the Hyde Park Historic District, the applicant could have selected a process by which they went to the Architecture Review Commission and requested demolition. And within that process, housed within that section of the code, there is an economic hardship assertion that can be made and demonstrated. But when we are shifted back to the position here, and there was a lot of discussions with the applicant's agent about what was the appropriate process for them to engage in, the conditional issues, the economic issues really aren't relevant. It's more the integrity of the structure that takes, the prominent role.
May I follow on
Go,
that?
please go
I guess
ahead.
my only
Continue.
concern, and I certainly understand the integrity of the building and the changes, and it's unfortunate that there isn't anything from the May 1990 meetings that basically elevated it to a contributing structure when it was, prior to that, I believe, was absolutely non-contributing, because there was that second step, which is contributing with alteration. So it seems unusual to me that it kind of leapt over that one and went right over to contributing. But the language does say cannot be returned to a condition approximating its original appearance. And that's where I'm a little stuck on, because obviously it could be returned to some extent, as we all know. So that's just, I'm not saying I'm going to go one way or the other. I'm just saying that I'm a little stuck on that point, and maybe if staff can help me with how that has been interpreted in the past, that would be helpful.
Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. We don't actually get these applications too often, so the I guess luxury of how they've been treated on a regular basis doesn't exist. But the staff, the code is silent on economic hardship. So you're really evaluating this almost as anew if it were coming into you for an initial determination of historic significance. It's sort of in a vacuum, and you're looking at it, would it qualify as a contributing structure? So that's the guidance that the code gives us in featuring the sections of the code that reflect how the contributing structures were determined in the original survey, which is primarily criterion A and C for the architecture that existed within the historic district and the contributions to the development of the city of Tampa.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Do you have any comments that you would like to make?
No.
Okay.
I'd say, I take your point, that at some point, reversibility is sort of a sliding scale, right? And at some level, you could reverse some of the changes, but to my mind, you know, it doesn't have the integrity of the original materials. It would make it really, it would be just rebuilding it, basically, a facsimile, rather than the original, it seems to me. So.
And the handicap we have presently is that there is no documentation
Right.
of what that house might have looked like
Right.
in any way, and any alteration to the present structure would be conjecture at best, and assuming that it might take similar characteristics to the other houses around it and in the district, but we don't know that. I have served many years on the ARC prior to this, as have you, and if this were coming to them just to simply say, is this worthy of contribution in the neighborhood, I have a feeling that it would not be so considered because of the significance of the alterations over time.
I would agree. I think because it was not listed as a contributing structure or a contributing structure with alterations, it allowed it to have modifications, so now it's beyond what it would originally be like.
So, hearing that, may I please have a motion from one of the commissioners on behalf of this application?
I motion.
Sorry?
Yeah, I motion to have it be non-contributing.
Now, when you do the motion, you need to state some significant reasons to substantiate the motion,
Okay.
please.
So I motion that it be considered non.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, this is Kamari Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. So if you're going to prepare your motion, your motion should say, I move to make a motion to approve or deny the change in status, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. So I motion to approve the changes to have it listed as non-contributing. Based on the fact that it was originally listed as non-contributing, and then as a result of, it was altered further over time, and now it's far beyond what the original structure was.
Is the beginning sentence of that sufficient?
I move
To
make a motion,
make a motion,
and I think you're moving to approve
yes.
the change in status, and please put the case number, HPC 2020-03, and then the property address.
HPC 2020-03, hold on.
You see it on the agenda?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So I make the motion to, does it go forward?
I make the motion to approve the change in status from contributing to non-contributing for case number HPC 2020-03 for the property located at 1711 West Hills Avenue in Hyde Park, if that's your motion.
Okay, so I motion to approve the change in status from contributing to non-contributing for the application HPC 2020-03 for the property of 1711 West Hills Avenue in Hyde Park, in the Hyde Park Historic District.
And then your basis for your motion, what do you?
And the basis is because it was listed originally on the survey as non-contributing, and therefore it was altered significantly over time, and now it's beyond the original structure.
Is there a second
Is
to the
there a
motion?
second?
A second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I just would like to make a comment that
Madam
while
Chair-
this is, no?
Yeah, I would ask you to please, if not refrain from any additional comments regarding this application, since we've already made the motion on it.
All right,
Thank you.
Vivian, I'm good. I have to leave.
okay. So,
I have one moment, please.
mhm.
If we could take a recess, we've lost the quorum momentarily.
Oh, okay,
Oh, yes.
all right. We will recess for
Yeah, there'll be a vote, but we did get
5 minutes
We did get
or
word
so.
that Commissioner Cobb was en route.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we were told. That's all right. No, he had told us before that he has to.
Vivian, we're on recess now.
We're on recess, yeah?
So the recess can be about a 15-minute recess, just for right now, till we can.
15 minutes? Okay.
Silencio en mi cabeza, rugido intergaláctico, sonido en el espacio. Silencio en mi cabeza, rugido intergaláctico, sonido en el espacio. Silencio en mi cabeza, rugido intergaláctico, sonido en el espacio. Silencio en mi cabeza, rugido intergaláctico, sonido en el espacio. Silencio en mi cabeza, rugido intergaláctico, sonido en el espacio. Silencio en mi cabeza, rugido intergaláctico. Sonido en el espacio.
No hay duda.
Silencio en mi cabeza.
En el espacio.
Rugido intergaláctico. Sonido en el espacio. Silencio en mi cabeza. Rugido intergaláctico.
Estereofónico. Estamos en la era de la naturaleza. En el espacio.
besándonos, quemándonos, besándonos, quemándonos, besándonos.
The meeting of November 10. And we are now at item 8 on our agenda, the addition to the work plan.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. This next item on the agenda, item number 8, HBC 2020-04, is for the property located at 1908 North 36th Street. It's the Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory in the Gary area. Let me, so I can go back here. Okay, very good. All right. The Tierra del Lago Cigar Company was founded by W.H. Streeter in Lakeland, that's where we get the Tierra del Lago name. And he relocated his business to Tampa, or just outside of Tampa in Gary in 1908, constructing the cigar factory that you see here in this picture. This is a 3.5 story, the half is the basement, blonde brick building that is embellished with more red brick decorative work. Excuse me. This is typical of the majority of the cigar factories that we see throughout the city of Tampa that were built in Ybor City and West Tampa and other parts of Tampa. With the 3 stories, the east-west orientation, which allowed for the cross ventilation in the, within the factory. Let's see. This particular factory was designed by Fred J. James, who was an architect of several prominent buildings, many in West Tampa and in Tampa. They included a lot of cigar factories that were constructed for the McFarland Investment Company in West Tampa. Tierra del Lago occupied the structure until 1919, and the Gary Lodge for the Masons occupied it from 1921 until 1972. It's quite a long time, and the decorative work that you can see at the top of the front facade there appears to be Masonic in nature and is likely associated with that occupation. So we don't have any historic pictures or haven't come across any historic pictures of the exterior of this building yet, but it does bear a remarkable resemblance to the Morgan Cigar Factory on North Howard Avenue in West Tampa. That factory was constructed in 1905. The Tierra del Lago factory is a bit longer on its east-west length than the Morgan factory was. But they do have very, very similar elements, particularly on the front facade. So this is an aerial map. And, it may be a little difficult to see because I zoomed out to help everybody get a good feel for the location of this factory. But it is east of Ybor City, east of the connector between the crosstown and I-4, and it's in the area that was historically known as Gary. Gary was actually incorporated as a city in 1915, and that didn't last very long, I don't think. I believe it was dissolved prior to 1920. You can kind of see on the map on the left there, and then there's a blow-up of that map in the center. It's difficult to make it out, but there is an area indicated as Gary, which is most of the sort of pinkish area below the north arrow there, and the bluish area adjacent to it. So that's mostly between 30th Street and 36th Street, and then all the way down to the water, to the estuary, I think it says, and then the north, was Wall Street and, Wall Street to the north and Sparkman Bay to the south. So this is the 1915 Sanborn map showing the Tierra del Lago Cigar Company factory in place at the corner of 9th Avenue and 36th Street. You can notice there's also another cigar factory just a block away. That's Antonio Labattiata factory. When we move forward in time a little bit here, this is 1929, with the updates through 1929, that other cigar factory is no longer there, and you can see that the area where the Tierra del Lago factory is, the building is still there, of course, but it's been pasted over to show that it is now the Gary Masonic Hall. There's, additionally, of course, more residences within Gary, notably along 9th Avenue there. If we go back a minute, you can see the little row of houses, very similar to what you might see in the pattern of like cigar worker or factory worker housing, with the small houses, little yellow wood frame houses all in a row, taking up like 2 per parcel. So in the city of Tampa now, we have several cigar factory buildings that are protected by local designation, including many that are individually designated, and also ones that are part of, for example, the Ybor City Local Historic District. But the, excuse me, let's see what we're looking at here. On the top left there is the Arturo Fuente factory in Ybor City. The next to, going to the right, are the Baldwin Brothers and Barry Morgan factory, which are both individually landmarked in West Tampa. I don't have these all memorized, so bear with me here. Corral Wadisca, which is in Ybor City in the top right. Sorry, my eyes aren't doing too well reading here either this morning. Is it Lozano? Okay, Lozano and Sons. The middle left, what's the U-Haul? The Gonzalez Fisher or Seidenberg? Okay. Yeah, the Gonzalez Fisher factory, which is the home of the U-Haul building. That's J. Seidenberg next. The Morgan factory, which is in West Tampa. And we have a historic picture here of the Oliva Tobacco Company building, which has been rehabilitated into apartments very nicely on the bottom left. One of the factories that is is that Pancho Arango? Yeah, Pancho Arango, which is part of the HCC campus and has had some modifications made to it to be incorporated into the campus. And let's see. Rosenberg? Yeah, Rosenberg and Sons. And then finally on the bottom right is that the, I'm gonna get this one wrong. It's not Thompson. No, that's the Ybor factory, the Ybor factory. That's looking at the front of it. So yeah, usually we look at the larger image. Yeah, pardon me. So it's the VM Ybor cigar factory on the bottom right there. And oops, clicked it twice. Going back here, of course, on the top left is the subject property that we're looking at today, the Tierra del Lago factory in Gary. The next two are 2 factories that are not locally designated, as are the rest of these on this slide. The Perfecto Garcia factory, which is within the nationally designated area of the Ybor City National Historic Landmark District, but not part of the locally designated Ybor City Historic District, as is the next one there, the Nieto Cigar Factory. It's a wood frame one, which is rather rare. I believe all of the rest of them are located, no, not all of the rest of them, excuse me. Palmetto Beach are the next to the top right, La Corina, and the wood frame Salvador Rodriguez Cigar Factory on the middle left there. And then the remainder are in West Tampa, and these are actually the ones in West Tampa and Palmetto Beach, excuse me, are in National Register designated historic districts, but are not locally designated. So we also have the Andres Diaz Factory, Bustillo Brothers, Diaz, Garcia Vega on the middle right, I believe. I'm gonna get lost here. This Samuel I. Davis on the bottom left, San Martin and Leon, Santaella and Company, and then the Ependis and Alvarez building on Albany Avenue. I believe all the others in West Tampa are on either Howard Avenue or Armenia Avenue. So you can see that there's a wide representation of architectural styles and elements that go into these. Went into designing these factories, there are several, of course, buildings where cigars were made and that don't look like these, that are not the large, iconic cigar factory structures. There are some smaller ones that several of which have been lost. People often rolled cigars out of their homes. So this was a very widespread industry throughout Tampa and West Tampa. But these numbers are dwindling, and these are the remaining resources that we still have. You can see that there's about as many that are protected through local ordinance as are not. So we're very excited to have had an applicant come forward to request the local designation of the factory in Gary, the Tierra del Lago factory. Because of the rarity of this property type throughout the city, and because of its fine architectural detail, staff is recommending that the Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory be added to the Historic Preservation Commission work plan so that it can be considered for local landmark designation. Now, our process for considering going through the local landmark designation procedure requires that properties first be placed on the HPC work plan. So that would be the first step in the designation process, really. By this commission placing this property on the work plan, that allows staff to proceed further, to create a designation report, do additional research, and then bring back before you at a publicly noticed public hearing and a request for designation, which would, if recommended by this board, then it would move on to eventually to City Council for final designation as a local landmark. So this is sort of the first step, the kickoff of the local designation process. The applicant is here today and has a few comments, and after that we'll be available for questions. Thank you.
Good morning.
Could you please step over to the microphone?
This one?
No, you can use that one.
Okay.
You have to just turn it on. There's a switch.
Oh, perfect.
Oh.
All right, perfect. Good morning. My name is Cedric Powell. I am a third-generation Tampanian. My grandparents and parents grew up in the West Tampa area. I grew up in Port Tampa area. And part of the great memories I have of being a lifelong resident of Tampa is, one, growing up 2 blocks away from the old bank that's now a converted library in Port Tampa. And then also, as an early child, a young child playing for the West Tampa Spartans, taking a car ride across town to play for the West Tampa Spartans, and traveling and seeing all the historical cigar factories. So that's why I'm happy to be a part of this group that's intending on preserving the Tierra del Lago.
Excellent. We're happy to see folks step forward because these cigar factories are dwindling, and we appreciate the fact that you and whomever is working with you are happy to do this.
Yes.
Are there any questions here for the applicant? Any questions? No?
Yes.
Well, yes?
I actually do. I don't know if we went over
Can
it.
you pull your microphone in, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just move it closer to you.
Closer.
Yeah. There you go.
Our sound
Great.
system is weak.
Okay, so for this property, is there any, is this gonna be mixed use?
Yes.
Or could you give us a little bit more information?
Yeah, it's going to be mixed use. Our goal is to allow the community to really use the property from where it's, I'm thinking of community events, exhibits. We want to preserve some of the history with a small museum inside. We want to allow folks to get married there or to have banquets or nice events after COVID.
Yeah. Thank you. If there are no other comments and your remarks are completed, I would close the public hearing and entertain a motion on this application. Go ahead,
If there are no other comments from the commissioners, I'd like to make a motion.
please.
Regarding application HPC 2020-04, the property name is Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory, located at 1908 North 36th Street in Tampa. I would like to make a motion to add this property to the work plan for local landmark designation because it meets the applicable designation criterias of A and C as outlined.
And may I have a second to that motion, please? All those
I
in-
second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is Mr. Fernandez is bringing us up to date on the Ybor City Design Guidelines.
Good morning, once again, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager, providing you a very positive update on the status of securing a firm to lead the effort in updating the Ybor City Design Guidelines. As you know from previous discussions, the guidelines have been in place since the 1980s with some amendments over the years, but are in need of a comprehensive update and sort of an expansion of many of the approaches to historic preservation that aren't really covered in those guidelines currently. We are in the final phases of securing the consultant, which is S&ME Consultants, which is a urban design and construction consultant that does quite a bit of work in Central Florida. So we're looking forward to our relationship with them. We should have all the necessary documentations. If it's not already finalized, it should be finalized by the end of the week. We're right at the edge of having that, and I wanted to extend my appreciation both to S&ME for engaging in our review process and also for our contract administration department for facilitating both identifying the consultant and going through the process to get them contracted with us. So my goal is to hopefully have an initial presentation to introduce the consultants to you. I'm not sure if that's going to be by our December 1st hearing. That's only about 3 weeks away, but if nothing else, definitely by January, we will have them bringing items to you, and we will begin to have a reoccurring item on the agenda which deals with the guidelines and providing opportunities for input, as well as examples of how some of the various sections will look. We will also initiate a very extensive public engagement campaign to bring in the opinions of all the stakeholders that are involved within the historic district, including property owners, developers, and organizations that routinely operate or do business or live in Ybor City Historic District. So I think it's a good opportunity to have 2021 be able to accomplish a significant goal for this commission. The project is estimated to last approximately 10 months. So hopefully this time next year, we'll be going through the approval process, which would obviously come back to the HPC and then on to City Council. So I'm happy to answer any questions with that, but I did want to provide you with an update because that's been a reoccurring item on our agenda. Thank you.
Commissioners, are there any questions to Dennis regarding this? Missy,
Actually,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm moving too fast, but the agenda has that the next meeting is on December 1st, but the calendar has it December 8th, and I just want to make sure I get it right.
Correct. We had an adjustment to the date.
Okay.
Based on a sort of a time-sensitive item. Apologize, we were supposed to have contacted you already on that, so.
And you probably have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any new business that anyone on the commission would like to bring forward at this time? Seeing none, then this meeting is adjourned. It is 10:25 a.m.